pilot either. I wonder why he didn't do that.
Very few did. Rigorous bunch of training and stuff.
Well, did you?
And also, you needed 2 years of college.
Oh, well, James had college. Hadn't James gone to college?
I think so.
Oh, well, and Bruce had though, huh?
Bruce and I both went to college. I guess Bruce got 2 years. I don't know when he got that. In the very beginning,
Where were you all this time? Weren't you all keeping in close? I thought you were real close together all that time, physically.
No, Bruce went to Texas and I went to A&M.
Oh. And where were James and Delo physically at this time while you were in college?
In Yuma, Arizona.
They had already moved to Yuma? He and Bruce both? Yeah. What brought them out here, for the Lord's sake?
Delo got a job with Valley National Bank or something.
Yeah.
And
this is all before the war, right?
I can't remember why.
Before the
first one I went to Yuma. It may have been because Buddy their dad went out there first on some kind of program during
what was his line of work?
30s because of the Depression and WPA. I wish I remembered all that. I just don't remember it.
Well, what was Buddy's line of work, speaking of which?
Well, the only businesses I know of is when he ran a grocery store. He owned a grocery store, and he owned the tractor and implement business. And during that time, Bruce worked in there with him. Delo for a while, but gave it up. It couldn't support him.
And in Yuma or where?
No, in Robstown.
In Robstown, oh. And so James went to Yuma before he went into the service, right? That's what you're saying? And you said he had an airplane before he went into the service. How did he get an airplane? What was he doing to get an airplane? You said prior to the service he was working with Nettie in Washington for this congressman.
Yeah, that must not.
That's not. Something's
timing is wrong. It must
yeah,
have
it
been
is.
After the war.
Must have been.
Because he was a mechanic in the war, and undoubtedly the Air Force taught him all about the maintenance of airplanes.
And then he must
came back and bought an airplane.
That's what I think must have been the case.
And when Truman came along, he bought another one for him. You know, a little light airplane.
Oh, his son Truman, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. See, I don't remember the airplanes or any of that. I don't think I. Once I recall something about being offered to go out to an airstrip and go flying or look at an airplane or something, and you turned it down. You said no, or we didn't have time, or something. That was way, way back, as far as I can remember. So, but of course, I remember the boat and all that, but not the. But somehow he got into that oil and gas thing. I don't know. How did he get into ARCO? Do you know how that Atlantic?
Well, yeah, he just got a job with them as a flunky. I mean, he wasn't big enough to tilt a drum of oil over him.
I know, he was so skinny.
But he got out there and he was working like an ordinary stevedore, I guess.
Oh, that's right. He worked for Mr. White.
White.
Yeah, I remember that real well. John White or something like that.
And that's right.
And so he just worked for Mr. White as a...
Oh, he worked his way into part ownership of
right.
this franchise.
That's right. They owned it together for a while. It was White and Kellum or something. Kellum and White, yeah. I've still got some old pieces of some of their promotional materials and things like that.
Somehow he swung the deal to...
buy the whole thing.
Yeah, take the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the three boys all went into the service in different respects or whatever, but we're going back to. I wanted to ask you were talking about Nettie's going to Washington, and we got sidetracked. She went to Washington to work for this congressman, and then what happened? What happened after that? Do you remember?
I just don't remember. I imagine her folks made her come home or something. Nearly everything she ever did is because her folks made her do it. And she got teaching Of course, she was.
Oh yeah, now that's the
English
part I
teacher.
missed because I either forgot what you told me before about that or
She was
something.
my English teacher in high school
She was? I don't remember that at all.
in Robstown. So she was back home by then, and see, she was about 11 years older than me, 10 or 11. So I was 16.
She was actually a teacher.
She would have been 26 or 7.
And she was actually a regular full-time teacher at the high school in Robstown.
Yeah.
And you were in the, I'll be darned, that's amazing.
I believe it was my senior year.
Now, how well had you known her before that, really?
So I would have been 17 and a half.
How well had you known her? I mean, had you been real, had you guys, you know?
Oh, I knew all the cousins that were in my part of the state. A lot of them, a lot of the Brown kids were so old. Manny was the oldest daughter, and she had kids, you know, that were born.
Yeah.
I think she had grandchildren by the time I was born.
Yeah.
And a lot of them I didn't know. I knew all their names, but I'd hear their names, but I couldn't connect with them, and I didn't really care.
Yeah, just
They were just
another
names, just more relatives running out my ears.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't smoke a cigarette without 3 or 4 of them seeing me out the window. I went behind the barn to do it. If somebody lived behind the house, they could see me. I had a cigarette one day, and I was walking down the street going to town or somewhere.
How old were you about this?
Well, I'm sure I was in high school.
Oh.
No, I started smoking long before that.
Yeah.
And Mrs. McGee next door stopped to give me a ride. She was alone in the car, and so I got in with her. And I hadn't slammed the door good. She said, "You've been smoking, haven't you?" She could smell
it on you. Was that bad a deal? I mean, was it everybody? I mean, was that just a cardinal
just
thing?
for kids, but shoot, I still lived in that house up in front of the high school. I must have been just in grammar school. And
oh,
I was making my, not at that time, but before that, when I first started smoking, I made pipes out of corn cobs and bamboo.
You really did.
You take the inside of a corn cob out.
I don't know how you do that.
Leave it in the bottom. You bore a hole in the side, and you stick a piece of bamboo in
Yeah,
there.
like Tom Sawyer, you know.
Got a plain pipe. And we had an ash tree in the backyard, and when the leaves would drop, they'd dry, and you could grind them up, and they look just like a Bull Durham. You know what that looks like?
Not really.
It's almost a powdery, flaky
Yeah.
tobacco. You roll that. How do they ever make that stay in a? Because most time when you first start trying, you roll it up and you tip it up, it all just
Runs
rolls
out.
Yeah, because it's almost like a
Powder. Yeah.
But good night. Old cowboy smoked that Bull Durham for years and years. It was in a sack and little tags.
Was it
hang out.
tobacco or ash tree
It was
leaves?
tobacco.
Oh, you said ash
But I
tree.
say when I grind these ash leaves up,
Oh.
they'd look like that, and I'd put them in that pipe and smoke those ash leaves.
Well, those might have been toxic or something.
Might have been. And also coffee looked like tobacco a little, so we'd put coffee in there and smoke that.
Just anything that would fit in the hole.
Cedar bark, man, you could smoke cedar bark until it
Didn't it all taste different or funny?
Oh, terrible. Hello? Hi. No, we ate about 12:30. Well, I don't know how when the movie fits into the schedule.
Well, it starts at 7 or 7:45
You said it starts at 7 or 7:45.
in Long Beach, right next to the restaurant.
Yeah, it was in Long Beach.
Right next to the restaurant. Practically walking. I think we walked there.
Well, it's just 2:55. We're going to eat before or after the movie?
I thought we'd eat before, you know, so we can eat at 6
Eat
o'clock.
before, and then so we better be ready to eat at what?
About 6.
6.
Leave here at 5:30.
What's the second movie start?
7:45 or 7:30.
Well, if we missed the 7 o'clock movie, there's one 30 or 40 minutes later.
Both in big theaters now.